Assalamu alaikum. A very good afternoon to all of you. I, Dr. Sumaya, would like to start this event with a quote by Albert said. Research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has thought. Respected dignitaries, respected head of the department, respected guest speaker of the day and their family, esteemed faculty members, and all the other colleagues and dear students. I extend a very warm and a cordial welcome to all of you. Today, we stand on the threshold of a very insightful event titled Preparing and Publishing of a Scientific Manuscript. It's a lecture that promises to illuminate our understanding of this vital aspect of research. It's truly remarkable how the field of anatomy has transformed from being solely associated with teaching to becoming a robust foundation for the advanced research. The amalgamation of education and exploration has propelled us into a new era of medical knowledge, and this event is a testament to that progress. Now I would like to call upon the stage Professor Dr. Kumar Satish Ravi so that they can have a seat on the stage. Please welcome Professor Dr. Kumar Satish Ravi. Now I request our esteemed head of the department, Professor Dr. Ghulam Muhammad Bhatt, on the stage. Now I would like to request our Professor Dr. Bashir Ahmad Shah on the stage. Now I request Professor Dr. Muhammad Saleem too on the stage. Thank you so much, sir. Now we have a small event. We want the publisher of the book, Walter Cluey. He wants to publish or inaugurate or launch their book that's Landman's Embryology and D4E's Atlas. Kindly welcome him on the stage. Head of the department, Professor Dr. Ghulam Muhammad Bhatt, who himself is a visionary in the field of medicine with illustrious career spanning years of dedicated services and groundbreaking research. So please come on the dais.
Respected Dr. Satish Kumar Ravi, Professor Head, Department of AIMS, Gorakhpur, dear colleagues, students, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. Today we have a particular deliberation on a pertinent topic, that is preparing and publishing a scientific manuscript by a renowned medical educationist of international fame, Professor K.S. Ravi. As you know, scholarly publishing in scientific journal is a preferred and well-established method of disseminating scientific content. Since systemic publishing began, there have been a gradual change in the publishing process, but the recent onset of digital publishing has significantly evolved scholarly publishing and the way the scientific content is disseminated and read worldwide. Despite the fact that there has been a lot of evolution of the publishing, significant challenges persist in entire publishing process that must be addressed. Article publication is an exciting and fruitful outcome of authors' years of rigorous work. Authors expect seamless and efficient article publication after devoting considerable time and effort to the study design, research, data analysis and manuscript preparation. However, the authors often face challenges that spoil their expectations during their publication. The commonly observed pitfalls that may be occurring during the publication process include basic writing presentation, fragmentation and lack of integration, lack of significance and originality, poor research design, scanty description of methods, untidy presentation of results, lack of proper structure, coherence and organization, inadequate and sloppy discussion and implication sections. As everybody understands, medical profession is a very demanding, with patient care and teaching responsibilities a priority, leaving hardly any time for research. But simultaneously, publishing is an essential factor for career progression. As you know, there is a lot of competition for faculty posts. There is also NMC pressure for publication, because you will not be allowed to get promoted unless you have publication. And finally, even one has achieved both these faculty position and also promotion. Still, person wants to have a relevance in the field of medical education, so publication becomes very much important here. Although there are many reasons why journal may reject a manuscript, the more significant ones arise from the flaws in the static design, manuscript preparation and organization, interpretation of the results, shady discussion, or a combination of these all factors. To deliberate on these aspects, we have a renowned medical educationist, Professor Satish Kumar Ravi, with us to deliberate on these various issues. Who is this Dr. K.S. Ravi? Dr. Kumar Satish Ravi is a graduate from the Sri Krishna Medical College and Hospital, Muzaffarpur, and he pursued MD Anatomy from Jitmar, Pondicherry. His educational accomplishments include Hammer Fellowship from Manipal University, Fellow of International Medical Sciences of Academy, and currently pursuing a PhD in cytogenetics. Dr. Ravi has served as Assistant Professor, Course Director and Head of Anatomy at School of Medicine, Supporter Health Sciences University, St. Lucia, North America. He is a well-known administrator and served as chairperson and member in several committees, and worked as an assistant dean, sub-dean of academics at AIIMS Rishikesh. He has worked as assistant professor, additional professor of anatomy, assistant controller of examinations, and additional proctor at AIIMS Rishikesh. Currently, Professor Ravi is the professor and head of Department of Anatomy at AIIMS Gorakhpur. Dr. Ravi enjoys sharing his knowledge of anatomy and medical education. He has received the Best Teacher Award in 2018 and Best Professor of the Year Award 2021. In addition to teaching, he is an active researcher and has published several papers in international and national journals. He has also presented his research work at international, national and regional conferences, and thrice he has been conferred with the Best Paper Presentation Award for his research work. He has received the Young Researcher Award by the Institute of Scholars, the Agna Rachana Vidya Vibhushan Award, and the Distinguished Teachers Award during Anatomical Sciences of India and Society of Clinical Anatomists National Conferences respectively. Dr. Ravi is a regular member of the American Association of Clinical Anatomists and American Association for Anatomists. Previously, he was the only person who has to present a paper in American Association of Clinical Anatomists from India. As a distinguished speaker, he has delivered more than 30 guest lectures in various national and international seminars and webinars, and has chaired many scientific conference sessions. Recently, he visited to Egypt to deliver an invited lecture on artificial intelligence. He is a life member of Society of Clinical Anatomists, the Anatomical Society of India, and the Indian Society of Human Genetics, and 15 other professional bodies. He is serving as Vice President of Anatomical Society of India. He is associated with the several editorial boards and has served as a reviewer of renowned journals like Clinical Anatomy, Placenta, and more than 20 national and international journals and magazines. He is the editor of globally recognized book Sinel's Clinical Neuroanatomy, first South Asian edition. He has 4 book chapters to his credit. He was a joint editor and section editor of Neuroanatomy and Genetics. In 2020, he assumed the position of editor-in-chief of National Journal of Clinical Anatomy and Official Journal of Society of Clinical Anatomists. Because of his commendable job, he could get the journal indexed under Scopus within a short time, which was very well appreciated by the anatomy fraternity. As editor-in-chief of National Journal of Clinical Anatomy, he has successfully organized 4 webinars to disseminate knowledge under the aegis of Society of Clinical Anatomists. He was recently elected to the Fraternity International Committee for Scientific Publication from India. He is a Board of Studies member at AIIMS Madurai and AIIMS Rishikesh. Dr. Ravi is a regular NMC inspector and has served as UG, PG and PhD examiner and subject expert in selection committee of various institutes nationwide. As Dr. Ravi is achieving much more in his life. What I like most about him is his down-to-earth nature, tireless stamina and a steadfastness in his work. I wish him best for his future endeavors, and with these words I request Professor K.S. Ravi to start his deliberation on his topic. Welcome.
First of all, I would like to thank Professor Bhatt sir for such a elaborate introduction, and you said a wonderful introduction. I am really impressed. Thank you so much. Respected head of the department, Professor Bhatt sir, Professor Bashir sir, Professor Saleem sir, all esteemed faculty members, my colleagues, students, and I'm very happy to see the undergraduate students over here, and that too when we are discussing about this research and the publication. Why I feel so that it is important to know from the very beginning of the medical field, because when we compare the India with the other developed countries, undoubtedly our country is lagging behind in the research and the innovation. So if we train our students from the very beginning of their career, definitely they will be accustomed, they will develop that mindset, right, regarding the research, publication and the innovation. So I am grateful to Dr. Bhatt sir for inviting me over here and giving me this opportunity to deliver talk on preparing and publishing a scientific manuscript. I do not claim that the images which have been incorporated in this presentation belongs to me. I have taken from the various sources, and as far as possible I have tried to give due credit in the presentation wherever I have taken from. I am very happy to share that I have the honor to associated with these three masterpieces in the field of anatomy, you say. I am the editor-in-chief of National Journal of Clinical Anatomy, which is the official publication of Society of Clinical Anatomists and indexed under Scopus. I have the honor to edit this, you say, the Bible of neuroanatomy, you can say, the Snell's Clinical Neuroanatomy, which I have edited the first South Asian edition, and which is not read only in India but globally, I can say. I have the honor to review the Gray's Anatomy International Edition from India. These are the names, you say, which I never imagined when I was pursuing the first year MBBS, that I will be associated with the Snell's Clinical Neuroanatomy, or you say the Gray's Anatomy International Edition. Recently I have been invited to join the international edition of you say the Netter's Atlas of Human Anatomy as International Advisory Board. Before I talk on the topic, let us have a brief look about this National Journal of Clinical Anatomy. This is the website of National Journal of Clinical Anatomy, and as I said that this is an official publication of the Society of Clinical Anatomists. This journal was started in 2012, and this journal is double-blinded, peer-reviewed, open access and published quarterly. It is published in the print version also, and it is available online also. So we intend to establish a high quality referred journal of clinical anatomy, and as I mentioned that the journal is indexed presently with the DOAJ, and recently it has been indexed under Scopus, and it is listed under Simago journal ranking. So we accept manuscripts from the various branches of anatomy, because the talk will be a bit lengthy, so I will skip. I will not discuss much about this. When you see this slide over here, as mentioned by Professor Bhatt sir, I took over as editor-in-chief of this journal in the year 2020. On 13th April 2020, That time the journal was not indexed under any indexing agency, and the journal, as per National Medical Commission, the journal was category under E category, that is at the bottom. On 25th March 21, in just 1 year and few months, you say, the journal came under A category as per NMC, that is it is now indexed under Scopus. So this is, I will never say that this is my effort, this is the team effort, and I give due credit to my team members, and in that a vital key role is also by two of your eminent faculty from GMC Srinagar, Professor Bhatt sir, who is one of the editor of this National Journal of Clinical Anatomy, and Professor Bashir sir, who is the reviewer of this journal. So with the contribution of all the team members, this journal is growing, and I am sure that in coming days this will also indexed under the PubMed. Now coming to the topic. The very first question which comes to our mind regarding this, you say the research article or you say the publication, that why we publish, what is the need to publish, right? So when we talk about the India, right, basically, to be very frank, we publish manuscripts because of the promotion, right? But there are people who publish their manuscripts, their research work, right, because of passion, just out of their passion, not only for the promotion purpose, right? You can see over here that there are people whose I-10 index is 917, right, and their citation is 1,75,188. So it is beyond imagination, right? So there are, what I wanted to say, that there are people who publish just only because they need promotion, because when you talk about this National Medical Commission, from assistant to associate professor, basically we need 2 publications, right, that should be indexed under DOAJ, Scopus or PubMed, and it should be the original article, you say the case series or the systematic review. And from associate to you say the professor, we need 4 publications. So basically research and knowledge diffusion, and it also helps in the progress of country because of the research, publication and the innovation, you say. So I said we need for the promotion, we also need these publications for the academic excellence, and apart from that we also learn how to collaborate with the different, not only in the members of the same fraternity, but with the different departments, you say, or even from the different corners of the world, you say. Apart from that, these publications also helps in the ranking of the institutions. Like when you talk about this NIRF ranking, right, these publications will help in the improvement of the ranking as well. Now, when you think about the research, right, the basic thing you need is an ideas. Without idea, you will not conduct any research project or the research study. So first of all, you need to have some ideas, and on that only you will design your research project, you will conduct your research, and then ultimately after you finish your research work, right, you will try to publish your work, because until unless you publish your research work, right, it is zero. So I would suggest that whenever you are planning for any research work, right, plan in those areas which you love. Suppose I am from this clinical anatomy, right, department of anatomy, so my area of interest is cytogenetics, or you say neuroanatomy. So whenever I will try to plan some research project, I will think about neuroanatomy or the cytogenetics, because that is my area of interest. So whenever you love anything, suppose if I love anatomy, right, I am passionate about anatomy, definitely the outcome will be different. But when you do anything out of burden, just because we have to do, the result will not be, you will not excel in that subject, be it anything, right? So what I wanted to say, that you try to select those topics, right, which you really enjoy. Then in that field only, you try to explore as much as knowledge and skill you wish to gain, you try to gain that. Then explore the subject, and apart from that, to get the different ideas, I would suggest that you try to attend some of the conferences, and you should not restrict only to the conferences of anatomy, but you should go and attend the conferences of radiology, you should go and attend the conferences of ops, gynae, you say, the surgery, the different surgical specialties, you can say. Because whenever you are going to listen the deliberations of those talks, right, you will be getting some of the ideas that, okay, they have done this work, now from there I can continue further. So try, what I wanted to say, that if you attend some of the conferences, CME or the workshops, definitely you will interact with the people and you will get some ideas, and then accordingly you can work on those ideas and then you can conduct some of the research projects. Now, if you see the diagram over here, right, you know that the laws of motion, Newton's laws of motion was discovered by Newton. So it's not that, and Kashmir, you know, it's a heaven and it's known for apple, isn't it? Right? So I really feel blessed to be at this place that is called as the heaven of India, at least you can say, right? So when you see this image, what I wanted to say, that not that the Newton was the first person who observed that the apple is falling on the ground. Before that also the millions of people might have observed this, that the apple is falling on the ground. But it was his way of thinking. He thought that why the apple is falling on the ground, and because of that only he discovered the laws of motion, the Newton's laws of motion. So what I wanted to say, that there will always be new perspective for the old problems, right? So you should think out of the box, right? Whenever, if you think out of the box, definitely the result will be different, right? And what I will suggest, that whenever you are going through any article in any of the journal, try to go through the limitations of those articles, right? When you go through the limitations of those articles, from there only you will get ideas, and then you will proceed further, that okay, these were the limitations. Suppose there the limitations were only the limited sample size, 60 sample size was there. So here, because I can see that this GMC Srinagar Department of Anatomy is one of the biggest department of anatomy in the country, I can say, right? So here you can elaborate, you can think accordingly to increase the sample size, right? So what I wanted to suggest, that you think, you go through the limitations in the manuscript, right, whatever is published, and accordingly you can think of the different research project. Apart from that, you should also consider the infrastructure which is available in your department or in the institute or in the locality, you say, right? Because suppose if I think something big, suppose I am thinking about some electron microscopy, right, and the electron microscope is not available in the department, right, then it is a wastage of thing, right? So you should know that what are the infrastructures which are available in the department, or if you wish to collaborate with the different departments, you should think that okay, suppose if I wish to collaborate with the radiation oncology, I should know that okay, electron machine is there or not for the radiotherapy, right? So accordingly what I wanted to say, that you should be well versed with the infrastructure available in the department or in the institute, and accordingly you should plan your research project. So what I said previously also, that you should always remember that whatever the interesting ideas are there, right, if it is not published, right, it is assumed that it is not existing, right? So whatever the ideas are there, you try to conduct the research project and you must publish those, whether it is the positive result or the negative, right? So your idea, your objective should be to formulate and test hypothesis, not only to collect the data. I have seen that some of the researchers, they will just prepare some questionnaire, right? They will circulate the questionnaire and then the research project is over. So there is no meaning of such kind of research projects which is just based on the questionnaire, right? So whenever you are trying to conduct some research project, even I'm talking about the first year students, you have this ICMR project, STS, right? Short-term studentship projects are there, which is given by the ICMR, right? So you can apply for that. And what I wanted to say, that whenever you are planning, you think of adding something new to the existing literature rather than just collecting the data. Then the question arises, what to publish, right? Suppose if you are not having ideas, you see, you go through the special issues of the various journals, right? You will get the ideas. You see what are the topics which are trending, right? Like in the COVID period, we say COVID-19 period, this pandemic, you can see over here regarding the management of the dead body. It was trending, right? I wrote this manuscript, right? Within 2 days, it got published. It was accepted in the Anatomical Sciences Education. This is one of the topmost journal of anatomy, you say. Very rarely you will find that within 2 days you will get the acceptance of any manuscript, right? So why it was so? Because that was the need of the hour, right? Everyone was looking for how to manage the dead body during that pandemic, right? And because of that only it was published, and I can say that right now it has been cited over more than 80 or something like that, right? So what I wanted to say, that look for the trending or the relevant things and try to write on that. Similarly, over here you can see my another article which was published on the salivary gland, discovery of the new salivary gland. So that topic was trending. We wrote, it got accepted, and here also if you see this green journal, the impact factor is more than 9. So what I wanted to say, that you try to write something on the trending things, relevant things. Then suppose if you have done how and where to publish. So selecting journal is also very important. Suppose if you have done something, some work in anatomy, and you will try to publish in the Journal of Physics, then it has no meaning, isn't it? Because the readers of the Journal of the Physics will be some physicists, not the anatomist. So even if you publish in those journals, suppose if I am working on anatomy or Ops Gynae, I publish in biochemistry, so it is not relevant. So selection of the journal is also important, right? And then you try the feasibility. What is the, how much duration it will take to publish, right? What is the acceptance rate, and never try to publish in the predatory journal, right? Always try to publish in the index journal. So now the question arises, how to write an original article, right? So before you proceed further for the writing of the manuscript, you should know that commonly what are the reasons because of that the manuscripts are being rejected. There are more than, you say, 40% or 45% articles are rejected during this technical screening. And why? Reason behind that the authors, they don't go through this instruction to the authors, right? They just prepare the manuscript, they don't go through the authors to the instructions, because every journal will have different instructions to the authors, right? So whenever you are trying to submit to a particular journal, you must go through the author to the instructions, right? If it is as per the instructions, definitely the chances will be more. So at the technical screening only, because of the figures, the tables which are not appropriate or incomprehensible, right? These articles are gets rejected at the technical screening also, right? Then after it qualify at the technical screening, the articles are being sent for the peer review, and because of the lack of novelty or similar articles if they have published, right, those which are not adding something new to the existing literature, then in that condition, the lack of novelty, then also the articles will be rejected. So these things we should keep in mind before going through that, right? Now, before we think about writing, just have a look about the life cycle of the manuscript. So when the author, they prepare the manuscript, they submit the manuscript to the portal, the portal of the journal, right? Then some of the editors will be allotted, and they will do the technical screening, that is by the editorial board. If it is as per the author's instructions, the editorial the editor will send that manuscript for the peer review, and the experts, the reviewers will, if it is, usually you will find that none of the articles gets accepted without revision, right? So it will be revision, re-revision by the reviewers. They will ask to revise your manuscript. If it is as per the standard of the journal, right, author is informed about the decision that it is accepted, and then the editor-in-chief assigns the particular issue, right? So this is the life cycle of a manuscript. Now, the very first thing you should know before writing, right, what is happening, that there are manuscripts which we are receiving, and in that the plagiarism is of more than 95%. So plagiarism is more than 95%, means similarity index means they have as it is copied from some of the manuscripts or some of the websites or some of the books, right? So you should never try to copy anything. The question arises, you can see over the image, the copying. That is, by the definition, when you see the plagiarism, that is the theft or misappropriation of intellectual property and the substantial unattributed textual copying of another's work and the representation of them as one's own original work. So if whenever we receive the manuscript, first of all, we will do the plagiarism check for the similarity index. If it is more than 50%, then only we reject, and if it is less than 50%, then we will send with the report of the similarity index to revise the manuscript once again, so that we can send the article for the review process. Now over here you can see that the similarity index to plagiarism is 42%, right? So they have copied from some of the websites. You can see over here there are the different softwares. They will detect that from which portion, the journal, the books or the website they have copied. Now there are two things. One is the plagiarism or the paraphrasing. Suppose if I say that the Dehradun is one of the beautiful city of Uttarakhand, right? So we can write the same thing in a different way, that Dehradun, the Uttarakhand's capital is Dehradun. So that is called paraphrasing. We just change the words, right? So even if you write the same thing in a different way, that will not be plagiarism, right? So that is called the paraphrasing, right? So we should even try to avoid the paraphrasing also as far as possible. You just try to write the things in your own words. So plan. What happens that whenever you are trying to write a manuscript, you must plan beforehand, right? Because I said that the rejection rate is too high if you limit how hard it is or how long it takes to write a good paper. So if you plan properly, definitely you will execute and the result will be much better. Now when we talk about the article, there is a different structure of the parts of the original article. Usually we say the imrad, right? Imrad, actually this structure, the imrad, it came into existence in the early 20s, but before 1970 we were not following this imrad, you say, right? Imrad I for the introduction, in that the what question was studied. Suppose you have designed the project, right? You have prepared some of the question. So I stands for the introduction, in which the what question or the problem was studied. M stands for the material and methods, that is the methodology. So whatever the problem was there, right, how was the problem studied, that will come under the material and methods. R stands for the results. So whatever the methodology you adopted, right, to study that problem, what was the result, whether the result, the findings were positive or the negative, that will come under the results, right? So what are the findings? And D stands for the discussion. So what do these findings mean? You have to compare, right, in the discussion whatever the findings you got, right, and whatever the work has been done in the past, right, whatever things are existing in the literature, that is the review literature. So what was done in the past, you have to compare your findings, your results with the previously work done, right? So that will come under the discussion. So when we talk about the structure of the original article, we have the title of the article, abstract, the keywords, the introduction, material and method, results, discussion, and in the discussion only we will have the limitation and the conclusion. And apart from that, suppose if we have taken help from some of the people, right, we must acknowledge, suppose even if we are doing a study on the cadavers, we must acknowledge the cadaver also, right? So acknowledgement, and then at the end, you whatever the references you have used, you have cited in your manuscript, that should come under the references. So these are the structure of the original article. We will see one by one. Now when you write an article, right, there are different ways. Every people have a different ways to write the manuscript. But what I prefer, that first of all you should prepare the tables and the figures, right? The very first thing, what is my opinion, that what initially we should focus on the tables and the figures. Then you write the results, right? Then you write the material and methods. Then you write discussion, and in the discussion only you write the conclusion and the limitations, and then finally you write the introduction, right? Now when you see the tables and figures, right, it is very important because it will save a lot of space in your manuscript, right? Much things can be just produced in a table, right? So it will save your lot of space. So first design the tables. What we do usually, that sometimes we will just copy and will paste in the manuscript. We should not do that, right? We should design the table and then we should label. Over here you can see, we should not just copy and paste the table, right? When you are designing the table, the clear background should be there and the fonts should be legible. So as I said, always insert, do not copy, right? Avoid 3D effects and unify the decimal places. That should be only one. So now the question, when to use the table, when to use figure, and when to use the text. When the data is not much, right, you can use the text. But when the too much data is there, so to show many and the precise numerical values and other specific data, you can use the table, right? Similarly, when you are trying to show the trends or the patterns and the relationship across and between the data sets, then you can use the figure. That can be the graphs you say, or you say the data plots. So similarly, when you see to show the presence or absence of the specific characteristics, right, you can use the table. When you have some visual explanations, right, so in those conditions you should use the figure. So you can see over here, like when you describe this thing in the table, it is very easy to understand rather than describing in a paragraph. So here everything, all the parameters you have given, the number, the percentage, right, everything is crystal clear. Anyone who will see this table can make out that what it reflects, rather than reading the complete textbook. They will get confused. So it is very important, right, that how you are writing, which portion you are writing as a text, as a paragraph, or putting as a table or the figure. Similarly, if you see, when the things are very small, you can produce in the text, like patients were divided into 4 age groups, 20 to 39, right, 40 to 59. So in this way, there no need of the table, only you can text, in the text you can define. Similarly, over here if you see, when using the figures, right, the good quality of figures should be there. You can go through the author's instructions. There they will clearly define that we need the figure in the JPEG format or in the TIFF format, and even what DPI should be there, more than 300. So you should go through the author to the instructions, and accordingly, as per the journal's author's instructions, you should have the figures. So always use good quality images, right, as I mentioned that you should follow the author guidelines. The legends, the key factors should be short and the crisp, and expand and explain the abbreviations or the symbols. Whatever the symbols or the abbreviations you have used in the figure, right, at the bottom, you explain that, right, so that the readers, they will understand better. The values should correlate that described in the text. Usually what happens, that whatever the text you are using, right, or the numbers you are using in the manuscript, in the abstract, it will be different. So you should take precaution of that also, right. So there should be no difference, it should match, right. Apart from that, even when you are using the abbreviations, right, when you are not using the abbreviation more than 5 times in the manuscript, better you write in the word. But if you are using the abbreviation more than 5 times in the manuscript, better to use the abbreviation. But when you are using for the first time, there you explain the full form of the abbreviation, right. Accordingly, we will see over here also. Then coming to the results, when you are writing the results, avoid starting sentences with the numbers, right. You should not duplicate same thing you are putting the tables also, right, and same thing you are writing in the text also. So there should be no duplications of the tables or the figures or the text, right. You think whether using the table is appropriate or using the text. There should be no duplication or the repetition, right. Use numbered headings and the subheadings. So cross check twice, number in the text match with the table or abstract too, right. So there should be no difference. When you are writing the result, you should write in the past tense, because the study has already been conducted, right. So you write in the past tense, and you must answer the question which you will raise in the introduction, right. When we'll discuss the introduction, we'll see. So whatever the problem was there, right, you must answer the question or the problem which you have written in the index. What was the aim, or you say the primary objectives or the secondary objectives, right. Should be the consequence of the methods, whatever the methodology you have described. As a result of that only it should be there. It should be legible, and only the relevant, all the information should not be there in the result, right. So don't include which is not going to be discussed in the discussion. Now coming to the material and method, again it should be written in the past tense, right, and when you are writing this material method, you must mention about the institutional ethical committee approval, right, because nowadays every journal, for every study, even if it is a retrospective study, right, we will need this ethical approval. That suppose in the retrospective study we don't need ethical approval, but there should be the waiver letter from the institutional ethical committee. So what I wanted to say, that when you are describing this material and method, you must mention about the institutional ethical committee approval, right? And your material and method should answer the following question like who, how, why and what. Now, as I said, that this material method should be written in the past tense and answer the question how, means how was the your study design, right? Apart from that, what kind of study it was, whether it is prospective, it is retrospective, observational, right, or you say the interventional, so cross section, case control, cohort study. So whatever is the type of the study, you must mention in that, right? And you should answer the following questions like who, what was the study population, right? And you must clearly define the inclusion criteria in the study and the exclusion criteria of the whatever you have excluded, and on what basis you have included and why you have excluded. Those things also should be well defined, right? So the participants, the eligibility criteria, matches, methods of selection. For case control study, the case assignment, the control selection, all these things should be there. For the cohort study, methods of follow-up, because that is mandatory. The setting should be there, where you have done the study. Suppose if you have done the study in the Department of Anatomy, GMC Srinagar, you mention that. What I mentioned that if the journal is double-blinded peer review, we will remove all these informations about the institute, your department or anything. In the double-blinded peer review, we don't share any information to the reviewer just to avoid any kind of biasness, right? So you must mention the location, relevant dates, the period of the recruitment, the duration of the study. All these things you should mention in the methodology. Now, why outcomes? What means as a result of the study? What are the outcomes you are expecting from the study? That also you should mention. So define outcome, exposure, all these things you should mention. Then what are you going to do with the data? So you must mention about the analysis, and you must mention about the bias also. Suppose any efforts to address potential sources of bias, you mention. Then the sample size, right? Suppose 60 is the sample size, you must mention that my sample size was 60 or something like that, right? So do not include methods which do not yield results, and it should be transparent, feasible. If the material method is lengthy, you should divide it into different sections. Apart from that, suppose if you have taken the methodology from some of the previous study, right, then you don't need to describe completely. Just you put the reference, you cite the literature that methodology is as per, you say Dr. Bhatt et al., right? So that you mention, they will understand that, okay, this is the methodology they have followed. So discussion, it is the most important. This is the area where you can shine, right? And it has been observed that many of the articles have been rejected because of the poor discussion you share, right? So do not repeat the results, but interpret in the discussion, right? Do not discuss what is not told in the methods or the results. Clear? And don't make assumptions, because everything is this evidence based, right? So don't make any kind of assumptions which result cannot support, right? So whatever you are mentioning, it should be evidence based. Your result should support those things, right? So results should be the clinically or the scientifically relevant, can be compared with the other studies. If not, why? And use short phrases like 30 to 35, the transitional words like therefore, in contrast to, however, those, hence, all these things should be mentioned. And at the end, you must mention the limitations. Suppose whatever the limitations were there, like suppose the sample size was less, right? So this study cannot be generalized because the sample size is less, right? So all those limitations you should mention, and then finally you should conclude. But you must remember that in the conclusion you must not copy the same what you have mentioned in the abstract, right? It should not be copied. So avoid, we believe this study results to be true, right? Because as I mentioned that we show our analysis that this study is consistent with empirical evidence. So whatever is based on the evidence, that only you should mention. You should not assume anything that we believe this study results to be true, right? Like over here, what I was mentioning about the limitations, right? So you can see over here, there are some limitations of our study, like we were underpowered, not adjust for other potential risk factors from a single center, it was not a multi-center, right? And demonstrate the risk of an important comorbid condition that impacts survival. So all these limitations they have mentioned. So in the discussion at the end, you must mention the limitations of your study. And while writing the conclusion, use the present tense, directly related, it should be directly related to the research question which you have mentioned in the introduction, right? It should be based on the results, convey the impact of the findings. Even if your result is negative, right? There are journals which publishes even the negative findings, negative results, right? So don't, as I said, that don't copy the abstract. You should encourage with your manuscript, right? Whatever you are mentioning in the discussion, your study should encourage the further study, right? Now coming to the introduction. So when you are writing this introduction, write in a way that it answers what is known. You can see over here, right? You see whatever has been studied across the globe, right? You mention that, what is known, right? Then what is not known, what is the gap, right? That you mention. Then why is this study done? What are your aims and the objectives, the primary objectives and the secondary objectives? All these things, suppose you have only primary objectives, right? You will be mentioning the primary objective. Even if it is secondary objective, then you change the paragraph, you mention the secondary objective in a different paragraph, right? And then how this problem is going to be answered. Suppose if you are studying any disease or any condition, right? How you are going to answer this, right? So these things you should mention in the introduction. So when you are writing, these things you should take care of. Use short phrases as I mentioned in the discussion, that 30 to 35 words, right? Write at the end between the discussion and the abstract, right? You write the discussion, you finish the discussion, you write the abstract, and in between that you mention this introduction. Regarding this abbreviations, already I mentioned that when you are using abbreviation more than 5 times, right, in the manuscript, then only you use abbreviation, otherwise you don't use abbreviation, right? And when you are using for the first time abbreviation, I said that you mention the full form of that, right? And you must follow the author guidelines. What you should avoid, writing first ever novel, right, until it is really novel, because the reviewers are the expert of the subject. They will know that whether it is novel study or previously it has been done, right? So avoid writing these words, right? Too many references are also not required. Suppose if you are writing original article, right, 15 to 20 references will serve the purpose, right? Then self citations, you should avoid the self citation. Like suppose the same suppose you have done the thesis work, right, and from the thesis work you have published already 2 articles, right, and the third article you are going to publish, right, with the different parameters. So you should avoid quoting the previous one, right? Not that all the citations you put your articles only. Whatever is relevant, suppose it is the continuation of the previous work, you should mention, but you should avoid citing your work only, right? Then you should avoid writing results, discussion and conclusion in the introduction. So you can see over here how this introduction is written. In the first paragraph I said the general background of the condition to be discussed, what is known so far across the globe, right? In the second you can see a brief description of unknown aspect relevant to the study. Then the third one you can see over here, the primary and the secondary questions which is to be answered by your study aim, right? So should introduction, when you talk about it, should preferably occupy 10 to 15% of the manuscript. Now when you are writing these references, there are the different formats, because every journal will have different format of the references you say. Some will prefer, you say, the Harvard, some would prefer this Vancouver method, some will prefer APA. So you should go through the author's instructions again, and what kind of in what format they need, accordingly you should cite your references, literatures, right? So this is the area where many people commit mistakes, right? So strictly follow the style which is prescribed in the author's 2 instructions. Make sure of references, don't simply copy from others. What happens that we have come across some of the manuscript, that they will copy, similar studies are there. Suppose 15 references are there in the previous someone's study. They will not take effort in citing their literature. They will copy 15 references from there and put it in his or her own manuscript. We know everything, because when the software is there, Turnitin, everything they will take, right? So avoid doing that, right? So at least 15 to 20 recent references should be there. So usually what we say that those studies are relevant, or usually we publish those studies which are done within the 10 years, right? If it is older than 10 years, we don't usually publish, right? So the references also should be cited, whatever is the recent work has been done, right? For that, it is always better to have some kind of softwares like Reference Manager, Mendeley, Zotero or EndNote. What will happen because of this? Suppose if you are using these softwares, suppose from one journal they have rejected your manuscript, and when you are planning to submit to another journal, right, and there the format of the references is different. So if you are using these softwares, automatically in one click they will arrange the references in that particular format. So you should always use these softwares, and if you cannot buy personally, you should have these softwares in the library. So then coming to the title, very early it comes about the title. Usually what has been observed that people take 2 seconds to read the title, and in that 2 seconds only they decide that whether I should go through this manuscript, this article or not. So it is very important that your title should be very attractive, right? And just to have attractive title, it doesn't mean that you write something, right? So it should have the keywords which is signifying your manuscript. So most of the keywords should be there in your title, right? So it should be simple, it should be brief, and as I mentioned that it should be catchy and informative. So avoid abbreviations in the title, right? You can see over here, these are the abbreviations they have used in the title. Avoid that, right? Nobody is will be interested in reading such type of the manuscripts. So include study population, condition and the study design, and as I mentioned that you should have the keywords of your manuscript, right? Like you see over here, this targeting your title, a study effect of treatment on nuclear parameters in oral cancer. This is my study, like taxation of micronuclear frequency as a prognostic marker in oral and oropharyngeal carcinoma, a cytogenetic study. So it is specific, concise and has many keywords which is there, right? So you should think about your title, right? Then coming to the abstract. So abstract will play a key role, right? Because nobody, as you see in the anatomy, when we see your this answer sheet, we don't have that much time to go through all the nitty-gritty what you have written. We will see your diagrams, right? And we will take a decision that okay, if they have drawn everything well, they have labeled properly, it means same thing they have described, right? So similarly over here, the abstract will play a key role whether the editor will have a positive note about your manuscript or not, or even the reviewer, because even the reviewers before reviewing, they will read your abstract, right? So it plays a key role in the acceptance of your manuscript. So cross check twice, numbers are matched with the results or tables as I mentioned, and try to follow the author's guidelines. There are journals which require structured abstract, like the background, or you say the introduction, then the material methods, results, and then conclusion. So you need to see the author's guidelines, that whether we have to prepare the abstract structure or whatever it is, right? So you must follow the guidelines. Coming to the cover letter. Very important. Why it is important? Because directly you are communicating with the editor. The cover letter will read, this editor will read your cover letter, right? That is the very first interaction with the editor will be with the cover letter. So it should describe the main objectives, the rationale of the study. If anything is novel, you must mention that, and how this study is relevant. Means suppose, because when you talk about the journal, every journal has some aim and scope of the journal, right? So you have to mention that relevance, that your study is as per the scope of the journal, right? So if those criteria they fulfill, right, your manuscript, definitely the editor will proceed for the review process, right? Now, you must consider these facts, right? As I mentioned, the aim and scope of the journal, right? Acceptance rate, how much is the acceptance rate of the journal? Suppose if it is 5% and your work is not like that, right? So better avoid submitting to those journals. Then the publication charges. There are many foreign journals where the publication charges in lakhs, right? We cannot afford that much, right? So we should see the article processing charges also. Like in the National Journal of Clinical Anatomy, the article processing charges is 5,000. We have deliberately kept it low so that everyone can afford and they can submit their manuscript, right? So, and then the article history you can see that how much time they have taken to publish. Suppose submission, the revision, acceptance, and then the publication. So all these details will be there. So you can make an idea that suppose you have to face some interview for the promotion and you need article at the earliest, right? So suppose recently I have reviewed one article in one of the journal of Indian anatomist only you say. I reviewed that article in 21, right? And when the result came in 23, the same article I reviewed in 21 and the article was rejected in 23 by that journal. You can understand that what will be the fate of that manuscript, right? So please go through the article information and take decision that whether you should submit this manuscript to that particular journal or not. Over here you can see that manuscript submitted. When we submit the manuscript, we are obviously very happy that okay, we have submitted. But till acceptance you can see how old he becomes, right? So these things happen. It's not like that. Even with me it happened. I submitted in 2010 and my article was accepted in the British Medical Journal in 2012, right? So it happens. So coming to the title page, follow the instructions as I mentioned. So every journals will have different, customize the manuscript according to the prescribed format by the journal. When we talk about the National Journal of Clinical Anatomy, in the title page we need the type of the manuscript, whether it is original article, it is systematic review, case series, letters to editor, whatever it is, you mention that title. And then many of the journals now, they need the running or the short title also so that the author can easily make out. Then the name of all the authors and the affiliations, the degree also we require, the corresponding author details who will communicate with the editors, then the number of words, pages, tables, figures, and in the Society of Clinical Anatomists and many journals, those who are which are the official publication of some of the society, they will ask whether you are the member of the society or not. So accordingly the membership number also we ask. So before sending, don't expect the editors or reviewers to correct your manuscript for the spelling or the grammar mistake. The editors or the reviewers, they don't have that much time, right? So read twice before submitting, right, or sending. Replace acronym, whatever the abbreviations are there. Numbers of figures, tables, legends, all these things you go thoroughly, right? One of the editor, right, they have mentioned the 8 reasons why she has accepted the article, right? So in that, the very first thing she had mentioned that the article which gives insight into the important topic and if it stimulates something new or the important questions, or if the article tells some good story, like meaning it is well written, easy to understand, or the arguments are the logical and not internally contraindicated, right? So those things, if it is there will be more chances of the acceptance. To summarize this thing, while writing the title, describe concisely the core contents of the paper, right? Then while writing the abstract, summarize the major elements of the paper. You see whether it is structured, right? If it is required structured, you write accordingly. The background, introduction, then the material method, results, and the conclusion. Then in the introduction, provide the context and the rationale for the this study, that is the question. Then while writing this material and method, describe the experimental design and the this procedures, right, in detail. Then while writing the results, summarize the findings without interpretation, right? Then discussion, interpret the findings of your study, and in the summary, in the conclusion, just summarize the findings. And I will say that you must acknowledge, you must give due credit whoever, suppose there are people who will qualify for the authorship, but there are people who will not qualify for the authorship, right, like technician or whoever has helped you, and you can give due credit to them. Even as I said that you should give credit to the cadavers when you are doing some cadaveric studies, right? And while writing this references, list all scientific papers, books, websites that you have cited. Now the trend has come that we need whatever the manuscripts we are publishing, right? It should reach to the maximum, right? And because of that only the follow-up and the visibility is very important. So whatever articles you are publishing, try to put it on the social medias also, like you say the ResearchGate, Twitter, LinkedIn, so that it can reach to the maximum people. Though suppose there are journals which are not open access, right? So the authors will not be able to assess those articles. So you can put it on the Twitter, you can put it on the social media. The people will go through your published articles, and there will be more chances of citations, right? So this follow-up and visibility is also important. So what I wanted to say, that don't worry even if your article gets rejected. You can see over here, even the Krebs article was rejected, right? And the same article which was published in another journal, and then he got the Nobel Prize, right? So don't worry, have patience. Again you try, keep trying until unless you get the success. Don't get disheartened, right? So publish or perish. You should take care of these things. You should not commit such kind of mistakes like data manipulation, which is very common in India, I can say, or you say the falsification. We come to know, right, that the data has been manipulated or there is a falsification of the data. Then the duplicate manuscript. Try, avoid publishing the same thing in the different journals, right? Then redundant publication, as I mentioned, that suppose you have done your thesis 15-20 years back, right, and if you are planning now to publish, it has no meaning because there have been a lot of changes now, right? So then avoid plagiarism. Authors come, if there is a conflict of interest, you must mention that. Suppose some research project has been sponsored by some pharmaceutical company, you must mention, right? So those conflict of interest should be there. Suppose I am the editor of the journal and I am publishing article in my own journal, so that is a conflict of interest. I will mention that I am the editor of this journal, right? And then you must follow the ethical issues when you are dealing with the animal and the humans, right? So the take home message of this today's presentation is that write an article which is in a logical manner. It should be clear and useful message should be given, and it should be easy to read. So follow author guidelines. The title, abstract, the cover letters are the key factors for the publication or for the abstracts. So whenever you have idea, right, you try to publish, otherwise it will perish. So even if you have very good ideas, if you don't publish, it has no meaning. So any publication, any scientific publication is a team effort of the authors, the reviewers and the editors and the journal. So this is all about this publication of a scientific manuscript from my side. Thank you so much. So I will welcome if you have any question. I will be happy to answer those questions. Is it clear? Have you understood something? Even if you have understood 5% or 10%, my purpose will be served because it should knock right somewhere. Oh, that worm should come in your brain that I have to publish, I have to do some research, right? And if it has come, my purpose will be fulfilled, right? Thank you so much.
Igniting our curiosity and enthusiasm for today's session. Sir, as we all know that you are a luminary in the realm of anatomy, your expertise extends far beyond the classrooms and encompassing innovative research and scientific exploration. Now, let's proceed towards the valedictory function. I would like to call upon the stage Professor Dr. Ghulam Muhammad Bhatt Sahab so that he presents a memento and a certificate of appreciation to our esteemed guest speaker of the day, Professor Dr. Kumar Satish Ravi. Please come on the stage, sir. Dr. Bashir Ahmed Shah on the dais to grace this event with some golden words and vote of thanks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings to everyone present today, including our distinguished chief guest, Professor S.K. Ravi sir. Unfortunately, we missed Professor Tanveer sir, the principal, who was involved in some unavoidable work, so he could not make it to the event. Otherwise, his blessings are with us. I like to convey his message of great blessings on his behalf. I am Professor Ghulam Ahmad Bhatt sahab, our esteemed head of the department, distinguished faculty members, staff members, dear students, and all the participants. A very good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum. It is an honor to have the opportunity to express my appreciation to all the dignitaries present. I am grateful to the esteemed audience of the guest lecture for their presence in spite of their busy schedule and their efforts in making this event a success. I sincerely thank our honored chief guest, Professor S.K. Ravi sir, for taking his time out of a very, very busy schedule. His phone is continuously ringing. That shows how busy he is and how difficult it has been for him to take time out of that and present this lecture here. I will again like to thank him for his participation and delivery of the subject. I should mention the deep meaning of my appreciation for sir and his explanation of the topic, preparing and publishing a scientific manuscript. I would like to sincerely thank Professor Sir for giving excellent coverage of the topic and to his idea how we should publish, how we should prepare, how we should take out an idea and how we should select the journal. He has tried to cover all the aspects, and we, even though we have already published some publications and research papers, but still it was a learning experience for us. A special thanks to Principal Dean Professor Masood Sahab for his unwavering support and making this event a success. Unfortunately, he could not personally make it to the event. His words of inspiration and encouragement would have been a great deal if he was here. I want to mention the fact that our esteemed head of the department, Professor G.M. Bhatt sir, was very keen to organize this event and personally worked very hard to make it successful. I also thank Dr. Manmeet Kaur, Dr. Uzma Rasool, Dr. Farah from our department for their efforts in organizing this event amidst their busy teaching schedule. I am highly thankful to Dr. Shah Sumaya Jan for her excellent anchoring and management of the dice. Well, such an event cannot happen overnight. Wheels started rolling around 2 months ago. It requires planning and bird's eye for details. We have been fortunate enough to be supported by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues from our institution who know their jobs and are result oriented. I cannot thank everyone for their participation and their willingness to complete the tasks beyond their comfort zone. I must also acknowledge the organizing team and volunteers for their hard work in the lead up to this guest lecture, particularly some of our postgraduates including Dr. Zarka, Dr. Insha, Dr. Burjis, etc. I extend my thanks to all the participants, including particularly the students for their active participation. Thank you once again to everyone for making this event a great success. Thank you once again. Thank you everybody who has participated. We may be, if possible, we may get Principal Sir here for his concluding remarks. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
I understand, sir.
Sir, a very warm welcome to you. I would like to express my deep gratitude to the esteemed principal of the institution, Professor Dr. Saleem, so that he has graced this occasion with himself. Sir, your support, your dedication, and your encouragement inspires us to do better. Now, without further ado, I would invite our principal sir on the stage so that he graces the occasion with a few golden words.
Respected distinguished Professor Ravi, respected HOD Anatomy Dr. Ghulam Muhammad, respected Professor Bashir and Professor Saleem, dear members of the faculty present here and dear students. I welcome you all to this lecture. In fact, I think the lecture is already over. It's a matter of great satisfaction and great pleasure to have hosted Professor Ravi. Firstly, he consented to be the external examiner in the Department of Anatomy, and during his visit we requested him to deliver a talk on how to write a manuscript. And as all of you are aware, from now onwards, once you will become pass out, and then once you do post-graduation and then enter into senior residency and faculty, you will come across a lot of patients who give you enough data that if only you organize that data from the beginning, and then having had that data, if you possess the requisite skills, which I am very sure Professor Ravi must have highlighted, you will convert that data into excellent manuscripts, and over a period of years into published literature, which will hold you good in future. Because in future, all these things will carry meaning, because any selection at any level means that you have enough publications to firstly be eligible, and the more publications you have, the better score you have over your competitors. So as they say, publish or perish. So it is your choice whether you want to publish your data or let the data perish, and along with that yours. So I am glad that the attendance is good, and I hope it is beyond first MB. Is it? I think it's more than that. So I take this opportunity to firstly welcome our guest, and at the same time thank him also for being here as the external examiner, and then as a valued, for delivering a valued guest lecture, which I am given the feedback was excellent, and it was received well by the audience. So I once again thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Zarkar, Dr. Insha, Dr. Mohallil for organizing the event. की असली उड़ान अभी बाकी है, जिंदगी के कई इम्तिहान अभी बाकी हैं, अभी तो थामी है मुट्ठी भर जमी हमने, अभी तो थामना पूरा आसमान बाकी है।